In our last episode, we successfully found the 3 other victims of Father Elijah's traps. The 3 others upon whose necks he placed an explosive slave collar, and whose lives our life is now tied to. If they die, we die. Now that the 4 of us are together by the fountain in the villa, Father Elijah's face appears as a hologram, giving us our next instructions.
Good. Well done. Now for the festivities and your part in all this. The owner of the Sierra Madre, for whatever reason, keyed the grand opening to the gala event itself. It needs to be fired off in order for the casino doors to open. As I've discovered, one person can't do it. So get your team in position indicated on your Pip-Boy, then trigger it properly. You're so close now, don't let me down. Otherwise, I'll have to rely on the next team.
What is this gala event?
A display of lights, fireworks, music in the streets. A pre-war festival to mark the casino's opening. The bomb struck first. It is of no consequence, only firing the event is. Get the 3 in position, then travel to your position, reach the Salida del Sol, and trigger the gala. After that, the real work begins.
The real work? What do you mean?
Perhaps you think this is a simple robbery, a cheap casino heist. No, this is a heist of the centuries. We're not plundering Sierra Madre, we're plundering history, taking from the old world itself. It won't let its secrets go easily, not without a fight. I wouldn't expect anything less. I'd suggest taking the FEV reject to his position first. Although you may need his brutality and strength elsewhere first. As easy as the villa was to navigate, the outlying areas of the villa are far more dangerous, thicker with the ghost people, traps, and toxins. Use your team as I use you. Listen to your caller. Watch where you step. You're no use to me dead.
So Father Elijah needs us to trigger this gala event, which will somehow unlock the casino doors, allowing him inside. To do so, we need to take each of our 3 companions and place them in strategic locations around the villa. Elijah recommended we talk with the FEV reject first, so we go to Dog, or God as he is right now, and enlist his help.
So, are we on our way to somewhere else? A gala event, perhaps?
God, can you tell us anything about this gala event?
The gala event is the way to bring the old man out. He won't show himself until the casino doors are open. So triggering the event is key. And the key. The question becomes, can we trust each other to do this? We'll see. If we go there, you'll have to give me control. If you bring Dog out, then I'll make sure you pay in blood.
Do you know of any reason why Father Elijah would assign you to this particular point on the map?
Maybe it's familiar, comfortable. Practice makes perfect. And as much as it bruises my ego, some things require brute strength. In the right combination. Besides, none of your assembled band of thieves look able to rip a 200-year rusted power switch down like a machete to fire up an entire town.
Alright, well I need you to get to your gala event position. Can you go on your own?
Maybe Dog will obey you. I'm not as easily broken.
Looks like we must escort God there, or turn him into Dog. As we went over in my very first video in this series, God suffers from a split personality. His bestial personality is named Dog. Dog is compliant, he's malleable, you can force him to do things. God is intelligent, he's stubborn, he's harder to work with, but he is his own man. Beast, Dog, responds to Father Elijah's voice, and we have Father Elijah's voice saved on a holotape that we can play from our Pip-Boy, which means that we can turn God back into Dog at any moment. but doing so will anger God. And angering God will change the ending that we get in this DLC. So for the moment, I'm going to do everything I can to resist using the holotape to force God to turn into dog, which means we have a bit of a harder task ahead of us. But for now, we explore a brand new wing to this villa maze. Elijah has unlocked the gates to Puesta del Sol and Salida del Sol. The point where he wants God is in Salida del Sol, so that's where we head. After hours of killing ghost people, avoiding traps, the cloud, and radios, we finally arrive at a gated room filled with switches. As we enter, we see blood lining the floor and walls, and it's clear that either dog or God has been here before. He has scribbled on the wall, "Where is your God now?" in his typical chicken scratch.
So here we are, a row of switches all lined up. How familiar. These switches won't move themselves, after all. There must be some trick to it. Now that I'm here, what do you expect me to do?
He says that these switches are familiar because he's been here before. We are not the only ones to have gotten this far in Father Elijah's crazy plan. God, or dog, has likely dragged captives here in the past, only to find them non-compliant or to have gotten hungry and eaten them. We can ask him if he knows how to operate the switches.
I do. The diagram there tells me what I need to know.
Now, of course, we can pull out Father Elijah's voice to force Dog into this room to activate the switches, but instead of forcing God to become Dog, we can instead ask God to trust us.
You're right, but trust? Trust is such a harsh word. I prefer mutual need. It's more honest. No, I can help you. These wiring diagrams. I know how to operate the switches in sequence to make fire appear in the sky. We just need to make sure that Dog doesn't surface before that happens. To do that, he'll need to be fed. That makes him stay in the cage.
So before we can go forward, we need to get him some food. What kind of food do you want me to bring back?
Dog has torn apart a number of the inhabitants of this town. Well, he doesn't prefer them to other flesh. It'll do for the time being. Find some of the inhabitants. It'll require some hunting on your part. Kill them. Take some of the remains inside them. Bring it back here. They're not easy to kill. But I have faith in you. And the beast must be fed if you want him to stay in this cage. 2 chunks of meat from their bodies should be enough. Hunt quietly, so as not to draw more here.
So God waits here, and we're off to find some ghost people to bring back their flesh. Now, if we want, we can completely sidestep this portion of the quest, because after all, we can always step outside and close the gate.
Taking that human so long.
After it's closed, we can go to a nearby gate control terminal and lock it from this side. This completes the quest and forces God to stay in here until he flips the switches. His only way out now is to do as he is told. However, that understandably makes God upset, and it limits our options when dealing with him later. So instead, let's do as he asks and bring him some food. Thankfully, the game spawns 2 ghost people just outside this alley, and we do have to kill these 2 ghost people. If we kill others, the Ghost Harvester remains do not appear on the corpses. I actually missed the second one the first time and ended up exploring the entirety of Salida del Sol before coming back and killing the second one to give God his meal. During this time, I uncovered a lot of really interesting lore, but we're saving the pre-war lore of the Sierra Madre Casino and the Villa for another episode. We'll cover it all in great detail later. Back to the task at hand. Now that we have the Ghost Harvester flesh, we can go back to the switching room and give it to God.
You better have brought enough meat. I can feel Dog's teeth tearing at my ribs, hungry to get out. You're good at fetching. This should keep him where he belongs. For now. I'll wait. Send the signal, We'll be ready.
And with that, we complete Fires in the Sky. I believe these switches are connected to the fireworks that were designed to go off during the Gala event. We'll see them in a moment. Back at the fountain, we can recruit our next companion, Dean Domino.
Was that him floating above the fountain, the boss man? The one who put these bow ties on our necks? Sure does like to make a presentation. We should keep it down, or else the ghost people are going to swarm the gates, Vira hologram or no.
Dean, what actually happens during the Gala event?
Oh, it'll light up the casino, light up the sky, set the speakers in the villa to play beautiful, soothing music. And when I say soothing music, I mean with the speakers being the state they are, things will be screaming all right. Think air raid sirens. That means it'll wake up everything in town like a hornet's nest. Not sure what a hornet is? Forget it. Basically trouble.
According to the marker that Elijah gave us, you're slated for a spot in Puesta del Sol.
No, looks like a rooftop in Puesta del Sol. In better days, nice view. Now, it's the last place anyone wants to stand when this event goes off. That place during spring, summer, and fall, a little bit in winter, is a prime resort spot for ghost people. Not the best of neighborhoods. If we're going there, I'm not going alone. And if you have any bright ideas about telling me to stroll over there, or leave me there, no thanks.
Any idea why Elijah wants you there?
Partner, I'm not sure this guy's operating with a full deck. My bet? Process of elimination, lowest common denominator. He figures the strong man's needed somewhere, even if it sounds like the strong man's two minds about it. Plus, I'm guessing wherever old doggy boy's needed doesn't need smarts. I hope not. Or we're royally jonesed.
What about Christine? Do you know what he wants with her?
Little Miss Silence? Maybe she needs to be in some place where she can be seen, but being heard isn't important. And me? I've had prime billing in Europe, New York, and this gig doesn't feel like that. Don't get me wrong, I can hold an audience, conduct a score from the rooftops, but I'm guessing I'm the odd man out in this whole heist.
Odd man out? I don't quite follow you.
Odd man out, dead weight. Someone you need holding the toolbox, the nurse passing the scalpel, the chauffeur driving you to the concert. Any guy with hands is who he needs up on that rooftop. Guess he thinks I don't rate looking like I do. Poor him.
With that, Dean joins our company and we can expect him to complain about everything we meet. Opening the gate to Puesta del Sol, Dean tells us of a shortcut.
Let's head through the hole in the wall there. If we go backstage, we avoid the locals.
Indeed, during this portion, if we stick to the rooftops, we avoid much of the action on the ground, but I ended up exploring every nook and cranny because I wanted to uncover all of the lore here. And I'm glad I did because I found something interesting while exploring one of the rooftops. I managed to find a brand new radio broadcast on my Pip-Boy. The broadcast was 743.00HZULF, and tuning in, we heard this.
Sitting too long. Damned arthritis. Damn it. Get back here. Come too far to go back now. Too far. Going to get inside this place if it's the last thing I do. What the hell is 21 doing now? There's no reason why it could have gone wrong. I had it all planned out. Maybe it was the curse of the Sierra Madre. Wish I still had that damn holo rifle. Spent forever making it. Need to find it when this is all done. Running out of volunteers, last ones couldn't see beyond their own greed.
This was none other than Father Elijah himself. We managed to eavesdrop on the man, but the radio signal is fragile. We only get it when we stand in this one location. And it raises an interesting question. Why can we hear him speak? After all, we can tune into the frequencies of our other companions because of the slave callers. Each of them emits a radio frequency that we can access from our Pip-Boy. But does this mean that Father Elijah is wearing an explosive slave collar? And if so, who put the collar on him? Possible. But another possibility is that he might have a Pip-Boy like us. And we're not tapping into his explosive collar signal, but we are instead tapping into his Pip-Boy. As we continue to explore the rooftops, Father Elijah takes us aside.
There, the switching station. That's where you'll need to bring the mute.
That's where we need to take Christine. Let's remember this for later. But continuing on, we have got to get Dean to his post. At last, we go through a broken building to arrive on a rooftop. This is where the marker that Elijah put on our Pip-Boy ends.
You're at the Ghoul's Gala area. Now make him stay.
So, this is where I'm supposed to put on the show. Played better venues, let me tell you. What's that there? Wiring? Looks like it's tied to the sound system in the villa, except for that snipped section there. So, what? I stand here, hold the two ends in my hands and tap them together like cymbals?
Looks like there's a broken wire nearby, and Elijah wants Dean to complete the circuit by holding both ends of the wire together. Sounds like that's the plan, Dean. Do you know if we're going to be able to do this safely?
Well, safely? Around here, that word doesn't come cheap. Look, I strike up the speaker system. There's going to be ghosts all over this place. Any change in the sounds around here? The ghost people are not big on talking. They are big on listening, hunting, killing. More vicious than music critics, trust me.
What if we clear out all of the ghost people first? Will you change your mind and stay then?
No, you want to know why? Because there's more beneath the streets, in the buildings, and everywhere else. They hear anything out of the ordinary, especially music screaming through the speakers when I close the connection. They'll be here fast.
Now, we could threaten him to gain compliance, but remember, Dean has a fragile ego. We learned that in yesterday's video. And if we do anything to damage his pride or make him feel forced or like he's no longer in control, then he'll turn on us later. So we need to choose an option that keeps Dean Domino in a good mood. So instead, here we'll pass a science check to bring up the villa holograms. We note that the ghost people don't really hang out around the hologram in the villa that we've been using as a meeting location. Perhaps they are scared of holograms. If we activate some of the other holograms nearby, maybe that will keep the ghost people away.
Well, yeah. If the hologram system still worked, that'd do the trick. Okay, all right. You call up some of those old world stiffs. That'd be an audience I wouldn't mind having below.
All right, Dean, I'll find a way to reactivate the holograms.
If I remember correctly, there should be 2 holograms you can switch on in the area. Just don't remember how. Do that, and I'll consider waiting on the rooftop. Maybe.
Thankfully, there are only 2 holograms we need to activate. The first is really close by. We just travel through the door on this rooftop and down some stairs into the next room. Here we find a terminal where we can activate the hologram. We see the hologram down on the ground, and it looks like one of those security holograms. Thankfully, this one is not hostile towards us, but perhaps it will be hostile to the ghost people. The second one is a little bit trickier to find. We ended up having to travel through a ruined cafe and along a rooftop to find a broken wall that we could travel through to get to a room wherein we find a terminal connected to a nearby hologram. We see this hologram on the ground, blocking the other entrance into this area where we will have Dean. Once activated, we can then take Dean back to the rooftop and talk to him. Both of the holograms are now on, Dean. It's safe for you to get into position.
You powered the holograms up? Well, yeah, that's pretty good protection. Sure worked at the fountain. Vera kept the ghost people away. But, how do I know the power won't suddenly go out? And, I don't know, this still sounds risky to me. For me.
We can again be rude to him, which will turn him against us later, or we can pass a number of different skill checks to convince him. If you play a female courier, you can also use the Black Widow perk to say, Dean, a man with cold feet isn't someone I'd share a bed with. This gets him a little bit excited.
Wait, hold on. I didn't say I was scared. Cold feet. Don't be ridiculous. I've played to worse crowds than this. I can hold the fort here. But listen, when this thing goes off, try and get into the Sierra Madre without me. You'll wish you hadn't.
And with that, he strolls over to the wires, ready to hold them in place, though he's not very happy about it.
Hold the wires, Dean. Talk about being a second stringer.
Finally, we have to get Christine in place. Back at the fountain, we can go and talk with Christine. Christine is still mute, but we can communicate with pantomime. And if our intelligence and perception and science and medicine are high enough, we can get an idea of what she's trying to say. She says that she thinks that Father Elijah is establishing a projector connection at this fountain through the courier's Pip-Boy. She asks to see our Pip-Boy to confirm her suspicions. After all, we've already learned that she's a former Brotherhood of Steel scribe, quite comfortable tinkering with machines and with science. We can choose to hold back our Pip-Boy or to give it to her. Holding it back doesn't gain us anything, so giving her the Pip-Boy, she examines it to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with, and then she takes a look at our map. She's looking at the location where Father Elijah wants us to take her. We learn that it's the Puesta del Sol switching station. She seems eager to go. We ask her why she thinks Father Elijah wants her to go to the switching station, and she says that she thinks that neither Dean nor Dog have the technical aptitude to deal with the switching station. She, as a scientist and researcher who is gifted with math, does. Once done, she joins our company, and we can head back towards Puesta del Sol. Remember, we passed by the switching station earlier. At that moment, Father Elijah took us aside, so we know where it's at. Once there, we can head inside, and Christine gets a little bit nervous. Her eyes dart around at the walls. She glances at the exit, and she begins to sweat. What may be happening is she's remembering her time stuck in the auto dock inside the clinic. Maybe she's not comfortable being within an enclosed space. The switching station is in disrepair, the power is down, and we can't go forward. It looks like one of Father Elijah's previous victims has disabled the power here at the switching station. We see graffiti on the wall urging us to listen before we lose our heads. But opening the electric box, we can repair the electricals and continue forward. However, doing so reactivates all of the speakers in this structure. Unlike many of the others, the speakers here are pretty well hidden. Many of the previous victims have left notes giving us a warning. We see tick, tick, tick written on the wall pointing up, and there we find a speaker. Continuing forward, we destroy more speakers until we open a door to enter a room completely filled with the cloud. This appears to be the source of the cloud. Why is it so heavy here? How did it get here? We learn the answer to these questions by exploring much of the lore here in this switching station, but I'm going to be saving that story for a video on the pre-war history of the Sierra Madre Casino. For now, we have to find a way through this deadly maze to get Christine to her post. With no other option, we race down the stairs, across the floor, and up the stairs on the opposite side of the room. Along the way, we find a whole bunch of bear traps. Finally, at the top of the stairs on the other side of the room, we rise above the cloud. Christine is fighting her urge to run with every fiber of her being. She does not like being indoors. Opening the door, we find a number of office rooms with terminals that have great lore. And in one of the rooms, we find a locker named Ennis's Locker. It's locked with a very hard lock. My lock picking isn't great enough to pick this, but very hard locks like this tend to have keys lying around. Let's keep our eyes peeled for a key. In this room, we find a mainframe terminal called the ventilation control system. Inside, we find an option to activate the ventilation system. When done, we hear a loud noise coming from the room to the west. It sounds as if the ventilation systems are firing up, clearing the cloud out of the switching station basement and even from sections of Puesta del Sol's streets. Peering out the nearby door, we see that the cloud is indeed gone, but we still find a number of shielded speakers. By turning off the cloud, we've inadvertently removed the cover that we were using to hide from nearby enemy turrets. After destroying the turret, we have no option but to run past these shielded speakers as fast as possible. Into the next room, we find another victim of Father Elijah's machinations, and in this room a terminal to turn off the speakers. Finally, we have free movement up here, and we no longer have to worry about the fog. This allows us to go down and explore. At the bottom, we find stashes of ammunition, cigarettes, and another corpse. On this body is a dead money jumpsuit like the one Father Elijah put on us, and also a note, "See you in hell, asshole." I hope you're dead when you read this. The Sierra Madre is out of reach. I could have had it all. Followed that white arrow graffiti bastard down here. Left those bear traps as presents for you. I hope you liked them. I hit my own tripwire. You came to take what's mine? Too bad. I got the last laugh. Speakers will kill you before you get out. Then we'll settle things in hell. The Sierra Madre's treasure is mine, mine, mine. Elijah wasn't kidding when he told us that the lure of the treasure of the Sierra Madre had driven people absolutely mad. We find a stash of stim packs on one of the consoles here at the bottom, and with the bottom explored, we can go back up to get Christine in position. Through a door, we run quickly to bypass some speakers to end at a hard-locked door. If our lockpicking is great enough, we can pick this lock, race inside, and then hack a very easy terminal. This terminal allows us to turn off the speakers. Once done, we can continue along the catwalk to end at one of the control pods. Here on one of the desks, we find Ennis's key. Well, we already found the locker that this key will open up. Continuing around the corner, we reach a room with a terminal. In this room, we find an elevator. Activating it, we see we have an option to go either up or down. If we choose to go down, the elevator takes us to a small, cramped room filled with electrical controls. There's no room to move, and we hear a high-pitched whirring noise that sounds a lot like the noise we heard coming from the auto dock where we found Christine. It looks like the power can be manually controlled from this location, but we get the idea that this terminal was meant to only be used in emergencies, and we should be able to control the power equally well from other terminals. We just need to find a way to unlock remote control. With this knowledge in hand, we head back up the elevator where we left Christine, and she takes us aside. She sees the elevator door nearby, and she tells you that she's hesitant to go near it. We tell her that she has to go near it because we must continue forward. But she looks again at the elevator and then glances back at us and reluctantly shakes her head. We can ask her what's wrong, and she looks at the elevator and then raises a hand up and raises a hand down. It's clear. She can't stand confined spaces. Of course, this makes perfect sense. She spent days, weeks, God knows how long stuck in that confined auto dock, which slit her throat and ripped out her vocal cords. Of course, she doesn't like confined spaces. She was having a hard enough time inside this big building alone. We can't expect her to go inside an elevator. Now, we can trick her by saying, "We'll take the elevator up together. See if there's another way to do this. After you," which would of course trap her in the elevator, making her angry. We could say that we don't have time and order her, "Get in the damn elevator." Or we can find some other way to fix this problem. This kindness, this understanding, is not lost on Christine. She brings a clenched fist to her chest in a sign of understanding and thankfulness. Now, we may already have the answer in hand. Remember, we found Ennis's key. Heading all the way back to Ennis's locker, we can use the key to unlock it, and inside we find the remote maintenance terminal password. This allows us to activate the power remotely. We don't have to go down into that cramped maintenance room. With the password in hand, we run back to the maintenance terminal where we left Christine. We can tell her that we found a way to do it remotely. "You don't have to get in the elevator, Christine." Christine is grateful. She nods in relief. She smiles and gives us a thumbs up. Here we can be rude and say, "Yeah, thumbs up, you better appreciate it," which gains us nothing. Or we can continue to empathize with her and express our concern. "Christine, are you going to be okay here?" She nods, and then she offers you her hand. We take her hand in ours. She holds it. Our eyes meet intently for a moment. Then she gives our hand a gentle squeeze and gives us a slight smile. Here, if we have the perk Cherchez les femmes, we have an option to tell her that we're going to be back for her. This outburst of concern for her well-being takes her by surprise. In her mind, she had just said goodbye. But here we are, and we tell her we're going to be back for her. She looks at our collar, and then she looks at our Pip-Boy. She opens her mouth to speak, but then frowns and closes it. Her face is sad because she already knows her fate. She knows that she won't have much of a life after this. She's already decided, as we learned in our last video, that even if she succeeds in killing Father Elijah, she plans to stay here at the Sierra Madre as its guardian. Her memories of Veronica, of her time as a Brotherhood of Steel scribe, rush through her mind. She quickly goes through all of her hopes and dreams of love, romance, a long life, and happiness, while reflecting upon her waning youth and her disfigured body. All of this worry, concern, and sadness weighs on her face. And yet here we stand, expressing such concern for her. After all of the evils of the wasteland that she's seen, how could people so kind still exist? But all she can give us now is her gratitude. She taps her chest, and then she nods you towards the exit. We depart by saying, "I mean it, Christine. You stay alive until I get back." She narrows her eyes, and a sense of determination reaches her face. As we leave, she gives us one final resolute nod. With that, she leaves our company and walks over to the terminal where she takes up her position.
The bell tower. That's where you'll trigger the Gala event. It's a ways up. I'm sure you'll find a way to climb up there.
The Cherchez la Femme perk that we utilized to gain that intimate moment with Christine comes from a French saying, Cherchez la Femme, which translates to look for the woman. The connotation behind that phrase translates into English roughly as, mark my words, there'll be a woman behind it, giving the idea that a woman, or longing for a woman, or the desires of a woman, is the source of trouble or the source of drama. To find the source of the trouble, to find the source of the drama, we look for the woman. But in the Fallout universe, this perk gives the courier a better understanding of women. It opens up new dialogue options with women only. It allows the courier to have more empathy towards women, to understand their motives a little bit better. It's that understanding and that empathy that opens up these new dialogue options. With Christine in place, we can give the switching station one final go-over with a fine-toothed comb until we come back up and take the elevator to the top floor. At the top floor, we find a stairway bringing us back down to the ground. We then have to weave through the villa maze, raiding more terminals and killing more ghost people, until we pass through a wine cellar filled with skeletons, and climb through stairs and across a series of roofs until we find a ladder that brings us to a roof where we find the Gala event control panel. Once here, Elijah contacts us.
Can you hear me? Damn transceivers. Let me link the callers to the speaker in the tower, then... There.
We hear tapping coming from the speaker. This is Christine. We tell her that we're ready, and then we hear from the others.
Ready. The both of us. I'll keep Dog locked in his cage. You just open the Sierra Madre.
What are you waiting for? Rub it in? Strike up the band already. Careful when you do. You think the villa's bad now? You haven't seen anything yet.
And with that, we say, let's do this. I'm ready, everyone. Trigger the event.
Finally. Now, the gates will open, and so will the skies.
We hear a siren going off in the distance, and then fireworks and spotlights appear in the sky above the Sierra Madre. Tragically, the spectacle is obscured by the thick, rust-colored fog, but I imagine that the sight, as it was intended to be seen by Sinclair, must have been quite beautiful. With that, we have to fight our way back to the door of the Sierra Madre Casino, and just like Dean Domino predicted, the sirens and the sounds of the firework has summoned more ghost people from the sewers and the depths beneath the villa. We find a hard fight ahead of us as we chop and blast our way through ghost people, throwing spears at us, ghost people throwing bombs at us. After an hour of running, hiding, and fighting, we finally arrive back at the fountain, only to discover that there are new shielded speakers trying to kill us. We have to act quickly. We race to the gate of the Sierra Madre Casino and open it. This is a point of no return depending on the choices we make in this casino. Once we enter, there will be some things we can no longer loot. So once we are sure we've gotten everything we want, we can proceed to the Sierra Madre. As we enter, we see the bodies of our companions lying on the floor. and then we too collapse as gas rises from the ground. When we awake, our companions are gone. What happened? Where did they go? Why did we pass out? Why are there skeletons all over the floor? We will answer these questions in episode 4, which I will publish tomorrow. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. We have to go on a hunt to find our missing companions and then to open the vault. What are your thoughts of Dead Money so far? I've been reading all of your comments as I've been publishing these videos, and I'm getting the picture that Dead Money is one of the more difficult DLCs for New Vegas. There's a lot of love for this DLC, but there are also many people who have expressed frustration at how difficult it can be. I'm glad to be putting these videos together for those of you who never made it through the DLC, because it really is a lot of fun. Yes, it's frustrating at times, trust me. The cloud, the speakers, the ghost people, the holograms, it all kind of weighs upon you, but once you get a feel for the place, it is a whole lot of fun, and the story is really stellar. This is Dead Money Week here on my channel. I'm publishing a new Dead Money video every day this week. I can't wait to finish the Dead Money story with all of you. We'll finish the entire quest, and then we'll talk about the pre-war history of the entire casino. We'll talk about Veracruz and Sinclair, and then we'll even go over many of the unique items and perks that you can get with this DLC, so stay tuned for those videos. If you want to make sure that you don't miss a single video in this series, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon subscribers gain access to a private channel on my Discord server, as well as a bunch of other cool Oxhorn perks. But more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.